Hey, everybody. That's Kim Lanham. Happy New Year. Happy 2021. We made it. I have one of my most favorite people in the world with me today. We are so lucky, and I hope you all will enjoy this conversation. This is Mr. Adrian Woodfork, and I know a lot of you will know him, of course, from Dachshunds and Dobermans and judging, but he is just an all-around dog man. We are so lucky to have him talk to us today. Thank you.
Hey, Kim, thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me. This is truly a pleasure. I like to be able to participate in these kind of conversations. Um, First, we're going to start off by just saying I have been in dogs since 1962. And I first started in Dachshunds. Let me go back and just say this. I am married, father of three, two sons, a daughter. I live in Sacramento, California. I retired 3 weeks ago. I'm so happy about that. I can concentrate more on my dogs. Dogs have been a part of my life ever since I was 12 years old. I got introduced to going to dog shows by a coworker of mine. We were teenagers. Well, he was a teenager. I was 12 years old, and we were sacking grocery at the base, and we happened to talk about our dogs. I had just purchased a smooth-haired dachshund, and he had an Irish setter. And he told me that he had just got his driver's license, and he was going to enter his dog in dog shows. So I said, wow, God, that's something I think I would like. I had this little red, smooth-haired, purebred dog. I saved up on my allowance, bought him for $50, and he's AKC registered. So he said, great, I need a traveling buddy. So I went to my first dog show, the Golden Gate Dog Show, summer show at Brooks Hall in San Francisco. I got a second place out of 3 in the novice class. That was the happiest day. My dog got a ribbon. Yes. So then I was hooked from then on. Unfortunately, my friend discovered that his Irish setter only had 1 testicle. So he couldn't go to any more shows. He just dropped out of that whole thing. My parents, I begged my parents to let me continue, especially since my dog had earned a second place ribbon. And so I continued to show and basically lose because my dog was a pet, but it was a start. And I was befriended by several people who, they like you when you come and you provide points. And so I happened to enter the Golden Gate, again, Golden Gate Winter Show, and I was stationed. It's a what do you call it when you are in your little boxes? Anyway, I was right next to a bench show. It was a bench show. So, I had to stay there all day long. And I was talking to this guy who basically told me what's going on. He said, your dog isn't going to become a champion, but at least you're learning the ropes. And what you should do is, if you want to stay with smooths, because he had wire minis, why don't you talk to some of the better smooth breeders? And so from that point on, I was able to get me a really nice smooth dog from, it was a daughter of the Great Falcon of Hindhaven.
Yeah.
And she was the sister to one of the most beautiful dogs I've ever seen in any breed, and that was Champion Brenner's Miss America. So I had Brenner's Bridget. My mother got me Brenner's Bridget as a high school graduation present. Well, Bridget, I moved to Texas. The Dachshunds in Texas were a little bit larger, and Bridget was on the smaller side. Anyway, she basically didn't do anything in the show ring, and I bred her, and she didn't produce anything. She had a real bad pregnancy. So what I did do is I joined the Dachshund Club of Northern California, and I was able to get a really nice wire that finished before he was 10 months old.
Wow.
And that really, and then I would work with Roy Murray. This was still in Texas. In the summertime, I was in California, but I'd go back to Texas to go to school. And so I finished Chip. Roy actually finished him on the Oklahoma circuit. And that really got me going, and I felt so great. And so the next thing I wanted to do was to get a female. But what happened, I moved from living at my grandmother's house back to California because I just wasn't enjoying myself in Texas. I hooked up with my old high school buddies, and we started, well, let's just say this. I embraced the hippie culture, and my dog Chip went to live with my parents. And so I got out of dogs for a brief period until I graduated from college. When I graduated from college and I got a job in television right away, I immediately took my first check and bought me a wire-haired Dachshund from a breeder by the name of Selma Scholes, who was also hooked up with the Hines, Fred Hines and his wife. And I got a beautiful dog, I Spy. Well, let me see, what did I call him? I called him Yuri. And Yuri became my little show dog. And then my next thing was to get a bitch. Then I got a bitch from D. Hutchinson. Over the years, I've purchased and bred dogs from D. Hutchinson's kennel. And I got a daughter from the famous Rose Farms Moon Rockette, the only wire-haired Dachshund to place at Westminster in the group. I think she placed either second or third. And I don't know, maybe there might have been another one since then, but I don't think so. Anyway, I was very fortunate. Dee was a very, very good mentor, even though she was living in New York. I could always call on her. And but in the back of my head, I also was interested in the Doberman Pinscher breed. So I got married. My marriage wasn't successful. My first marriage, it wasn't successful. And I got custody of my kid, 2 years old. So what I wanted to do was to bring in another entity, since he didn't have his mother around, into the house. And I got a Doberman to feel, didn't really take the place of the mother, but it was something that would distract him from missing his mother. And I was a good father, I got to tell you. I knew how to cook, sew, and everything. I knew how to take care of my kid.
All right.
And so, and then, so pretty much the rest is history. I started showing and breeding Dobermans. And then, about 23 years ago, 24 years ago, I became a judge. And I've been very fortunate because I've been invited to judge around the country as well as the world. I've been around the world judging. And my biggest feat in this whole thing is being voted on by the Doberman Pinscher Club of America members to judge the national 4 times.
Awesome.
That to me, it means more than anything in the whole world. Now, the Dachshund Club, I've been nominated several times. I didn't get the vote. I came runner-up, and I've judged the regionals. I've judged several regionals, and that was wonderful. So that's basically been my trek in this dog world, and I have to say it's been very rewarding on so many levels.
That is wonderful. Thank you so much for telling us all that. Well, you touched on something. I want to talk about it a little bit. You touched on mentor mentee, that Dee Hutchison was a good mentor, even though she was, across the country. Tell me what people should be looking for when they're looking for a mentor, and then how should they receive, how can they be a good mentee to?
Well, first thing, in terms of mentor, when you go to the shows, I always tell people who I mentor, pay attention.
Right.
Pay attention to what's going on. Pay attention to how the different breeders, well, I'm their mentor, but the way I did it was, look at who is doing some really good winning. Look at who responds to your questions in a way that they care about you. Trust is very, very important in the scheme of things. Look who is doing the kind of breeding that you would aspire to do. In other words, for me, in Dobermans, when I get ready to breed a dog, I'm looking at the health factors. That's huge. I'm looking at the temperament. Pay attention to, if you want to succeed, you got to go there and you got to start paying attention to people and how they act and how they take their losses and how they take their wins. Those are the people you want to surround yourself with. There's, like anything else, any sport, any job, you're going to have negativity. Right. That's just the way it is. And most especially when you are in the competitive arena. So you have to focus on those elements that make you happy and make you want to continue. And when I was looking for a breeder, I really looked toward people who had a lot of positive advice and who was doing good breeding and who was accomplishing things with their breeding, whether it be obedience or confirmation. And that's what I look for. And I think it's very, very important. Now, when I am mentoring people, I really expect loyalty, because I tell them, I said, everybody who has succeeded has their own way. But if you go around from person to person to person, you're going to get mixed up and you're going to be confused. So try to hitch your wagon to someone who you trust. And, and that trust is based on, how, on your conversations with them, what they have to say about their breeding program, how they present themselves, period. And if you find that, you really can't trust this person because you see the way they conduct themselves, you go to another person. Exactly. Don't get hooked up in the mire of negativity. Really try to pay attention to who is doing good things for the breed.
I think that is so important. And I think it's important for people to give themselves some grace to start over if they make a mistake.
Absolutely.
Start over. And when you know better, you do better.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So and finding those people who are willing to work with you. And as you said, the negative, the nasty, all of that, there's no way to move forward with that constantly hanging over your head. So I think that's fabulous advice, to have people find someone who, look at how they conduct themselves, and how they treat you. The respect is a two-way street. So, yeah. So
there are people who want other breeds. They're not interested in Dachshunds and Dobermans. And I always tell them, I say, go to ringside. Again, pay attention and approach them after the show. If they don't want to have anything to do with you or they're short with you, move on. Exactly. You move on. There's always somebody that really, there are good people in this, is what I'm trying to say. There are good people. Unfortunately, just like anything else, you're going to have some rotten apples, but there are enough good people to help you and inspire you, and to for you to know that they're a good resource for for your needs and your questions. Because after a while, like myself, you become a resource. I have my little circle of friends in the Doberman breed that we call each other about different issues pertaining to our dogs.
Mm-hmm.
And we're each other's resource because, you know, you may forget something and then you call this person, that person. But I have a small circle of friends, so I feel that helps me as a mentor too, because a lot of times I don't know something, I will call those people. I said, I'll tell my little mentee, you know, I'll get an answer for you,
Mm-hmm.
you know, because that's the way we're going to, that will only improve the breed if we look at it that way, you know.
Well, and what you're saying, was something I wanted to touch on too, is how important relationship building and collaboration among breeders is. It is so important. And, yes, you have your core group of people that you can count on, and my grandmother always said, you will be able to count your friends on one hand. And in this dog thing, that is the truth, too, for me. It is the absolute truth. But, talk to them about how important collaboration is among breeders to move a breed forward, to have a future, for a breed to have a future, so people, I feel like sometimes we get bogged down in the, the politics, or he said, she said, or the dislike that people have for each other instead of looking toward what is best for the breed.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And what is best for you as a breeder moving on.
Yeah.
You got to know when to hold them and fold them and go decide, you know what, I don't want to go in that direction with that particular breeder anymore because
Right.
it's not worth it,
Right.
In mentoring, and I have to knock on wood, I've been very, very successful in mentoring at least 5 or 6 people who've gone on to do really, really well. They make me so proud. And that to me really, really blows, it really helps me as a person to feel so good about, myself and my contribution. And one of the hardest things is, because of the negativity, is keeping them in the game.
Yeah.
And I always tell them, if you love your dogs and you love the sport of showing and the hobby of breeding dogs, don't let anybody run you away. Don't let
You hear that, people? Do you hear that? Don't let anybody run you away.
Don't let anybody run you away. You just ignore. And that goes for going into the ring. Just because you lose under a bad judge, and there are bad judges and there are great judges and there are good judges. But if you lose, don't allow that to determine your future in dogs. Just, again, pay attention. In other words, if you lose under what I would consider bad judging, don't go under that judge anymore.
Right.
But on the other hand, one of the things that I learned from my mentor, Faye Strauss, Faye said, sometimes you could use this to your advantage. You lose under a bad judge, so you lose. So think about, instead of thinking about quitting or, all you have to do is think to yourself, what could I have done better? Even though you clearly should have won. Mm-hmm. But if you take it to the positive and think about, could I have improved? I probably wouldn't have won anymore, but is there something I could have done? And if you just start working on your craft, that will help you also. Mm-hmm. So in other words, get the poison out of your system of losing and just use that to propel you on to doing better as an exhibitor. Mm-hmm. What could you have done better? And that has helped me too. That has helped me mentally. And I pass that on to some of the people, because if I'm going to sit back and just be pissed off all day long and not look at it any other way, but I shouldn't have lost, then you know what? That's poisoning my system, and it's poisoning my brain against the whole dog show culture.
Right.
So there are various ways of looking at it to keep you, to keep you in the game. And you can only progress if you stay on a positive course.
So let it bolster you. Let it be, give you some incentive to keep going. Let that put the fire. Let that put the fire underneath you.
Yeah. And not keep going with that judge, but to keep going.
Just to keep going. To keep going.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about breeding, because you have done this for a long time. So I want to talk about breeding. I want to know, what does it take for a puppy to make the cut and stay in your breeding program? Talk to us about just the different facets. What is your formula for, a successful breeding and then on to a successful program?
Mm-hmm.
So we've got a lot of young breeders who are trying to start out, and they're not quite sure, how to take what you have and just build on that. Should they be looking, for the best bitch or the best dog they can get from an established breed? I mean, talk to them through the steps they can take to get started and get started right, so that they don't have to go back so many times.
Exactly. Well, you have to start with a person who has been successful in breeding. And if you want to get into showing, a person who's successful in breeding show dogs. That's you got to start with a good bitch. You cannot take a mediocre bitch and expect a good stud to correct your bitch's faults. You have to start, your basis is to start with a good bitch. Your basis is to start with a good breeder who will allow you to buy a good bitch and to mentor you. And if that breeder has been successful, you want to do what that breeder is telling you to do. You want to follow that course until you have established yourself to the point where you know exactly what you're doing. You know what how to succeed. But I always say, you start with a good bitch, and then when your puppies are born, you want to. A lot of people don't realize this, but the formative stage is so important when they are, starting at least at 2-3 weeks old, to start the socialization process within your home and make sure that, you're giving them attention and even talking to them and everything. And then from that point, when my puppies are 3 weeks old, I invite people over and kids over to socialize my babies. And I introduce, as they grow, as we go by, I introduce them to various stimuli. I want them to be on different surfaces. I want them to have all kinds of toys. We even have little obstacle courses we set up for them, because temperament is so important, especially in your bigger breed. So, I mean, the Doberman breed is no different than the Dachshund breed or any other breed, to tell you the truth. Socialization is so important in the beginning. Then when I start looking at my puppies, I start for evaluation. I take a glance at them for show, just walking around and how their carriage, because their bone structure is continuing to grow. How they carry themselves is very important. I like the ones that just walk around like they own the whelping box or own the floor that I put them on. And then when they're 8 weeks old, that's when I have always made my decisions as to who goes to a show home and who goes to a pet home. Now, have I been wrong? Oh, yeah. But the bottom line, the dogs have to leave the house.
Right.
I want them gone. I really do. I want them gone no later than 10 weeks because I want them to get into their new homes. And if I can get them out at between 8 and 10, that's good. I've never had a problem selling any of my Dobermans or Dachshunds for that reason. And so I think it's just really important, the socialization process, the grading when they are 8 weeks old. That is the determination factor. I look at the way with Dobermans, I want the top line to be level. And I want them to, I like to see them toe out a little bit because, and that same thing with Dachshunds, because as the chest grows, it'll turn them back in. It'll turn them straight. But if they're like this already, and the chest grows, they'll go in. So I look at those things. I look at the tail set on the Dobermans, how they carry their tail. I don't want their tail straight up like a terrier. I want it at an angle. The thing is that, you know, with Dachshunds and Dobermans, you also have the testicle factor with males. You want, you know, the testicles have to be down. I cannot sell a dog when I'm, you know, I don't care how good he looks if he only has one testicle.
Right.
You know, so in selling these dogs, I tell the people, I am selling you a show prospect. I am selling you a dog that has promise. One of the best dogs I ever bred. She's stunning. She was like, she was the 5th pick in the litter of 10.
Wow.
But that litter also had 4 other champions. But she wasn't even considered. I sold her to a pet home. And she wasn't even considered. But she was a slow grower.
Yeah.
And they came to town one day and they said, Adrian, we're in town visiting our relatives. Would you like to see Maya? I said, oh, sure, of course. I want to see any of my babies. They came by. As soon as she got out of the car, I said, oh, boy. Oh, man.
Yeah.
And I asked my wife, I said, go get the show lead, please. And she went and got the show lead. I said, I put the show lead on her and I just walked her halfway down the block and I walked her back and I said, are you guys interested in showing? And they looked at each other and said, well, no, we never thought about it. You know, I said, well, listen, I think you should. The rest is history. I took her to a couple of shows. I said, why don't we go fishing and see if we can hook a couple of ribbons?
Yeah.
Well, she finished in no time. She was a group winner, multi-group winner, specialty winner. She an incredible mother. This is a good example of there are no guarantees. There are no guarantees. You can only hope. I didn't even have any hope for her one way or the other. I just thought she was just a nice little puppy that I raised just like the other ones. But she didn't show she didn't have the attributes at the time. But she passed up everybody. It's just a stunning bitch. And at any rate, so that's basically my whole philosophy about breeding, is that the whelping box is those formative stages, like raising children. The formative years, you know, when they are young, you know, 3, 4, 5, those are very important years. And so you got to know what you're doing. You got to have the time to do it right. If you're doing it right, if you have the time to do it right and not just have a bitch shoved in a room to have babies and you sell them, if you do it right, you will achieve. Get a good breeder, get a good bitch, and do your homework. And let that breeder guide you, and so that it will also reflect on them, and that's very important. That's why it's so important to hook your wagon up to a good breeder.
Absolutely. Well, talk to people about what you look for in a stud dog. Say people have gotten that bitch, and now
Yeah.
they're ready to take the next step. Talk to them about how they should go about finding a good stud dog. What attributes you look for when you're looking for one of your girls?
First and foremost, health. I go through the pedigree. I go through, if I'm interested in a particular dog that I've seen at shows and magazines or whatever, I look at health. I go and do some research what's behind that dog. In all breeds, you have issues.
Right.
And with Dobermans, it's heart. Cancer, there's nothing you can, everybody, dogs, are prone to get cancer in any breed. But there are some issues like with Dobermans, it's big. The health problem that we face, the biggest health problem is the heart disease, cardiomyopathy. Mm-hmm. And so I look for that. And I would encourage anybody with any breed to understand the health problems that you're prone to get if you are engaged in breeding a certain breed. So that's first and foremost. Secondly, temperament. Temperament and health is first and foremost. And what I really want to do in terms of my research, to further my research, I want to look at his offspring, mm-hmm. and see what kind of what he's producing on a consistent basis. 60% of the credit has to go to the bitch, but there are some things that a male dog can bring to the table that will help the bitch. And if it's a consistent thing, and if I need that, then that's another point. That's another star that goes by his name. Mm-hmm. And those are the main things that I look for: health and temperament, and his and what he has done for other breeders. And that's what I've basically paid the most attention to.
So what do you think about the whole popular sire syndrome that we see so often in so many different breeds? You've got this one sire who's beginning to dominate the breed. And kind of, because I sometimes think that people make the mistake of thinking that, they have to breed to the biggest winning dog, or something like that. When the best dog may be sitting on somebody's couch. I mean, for your girl, he may have been finished for 6-7 years, and he's sitting on somebody's couch being a pet, and that's the one that you need. I mean, kind of what is your advice to people to find what they need and be diligent, about finding what they need? Because it may not be the one that, is the name that you recognize. So,
flavor of the month, I always call it the flavor of the month. Every now and then you'll get a dog that is really popular because he's done a lot of breeding, that actually is a very good producer. Too many times, though, you'll get a dog that's the flavor of the month that doesn't have the best health record, but because you bred to that dog and people see that dog in the magazines all the time, then that dog is probably his puppies might sell better. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? But that's not being a responsible breeder. A responsible breeder is going to should breed for health. I always say, I don't want to sell death. I don't want to have my heart broken when a breeder, when an owner calls me up and say, my dog just died, he's only 4 years old. I don't want to have that. That's heartbreaking to me.
Yeah.
So the flavor of the month could be good. But again, unless you have seen his record, that's why I don't like to breed to a dog that I don't know anything about in terms of his offspring and his record. I don't mind breeding to an older dog that I can find out, I can get more information about, or even a dog that's dead, that they have frozen semen. And if I find that he had a really good record of producing nice, healthy dogs, I'm more apt to go there. There was a dog a few years ago that a lot of people were breeding to. And it was just, because he was producing beautiful dogs, I have to say. But I didn't breed to him just because the time wasn't right, but he was on my list to consider, high on my list, because he was producing beautiful dogs. I'd see them at the National. But so many of those dogs died before they were 5 years old. I mean, a lot of them, it was rampant. And he actually ended up dying young. But people were breeding. I think he ended up dying young also, comparatively speaking. I don't even think he reached the age of 8. But so that's why it's so important, because it's such a heartbreak to lose them. And I don't care how old they are, but when you lose them really young, that's even more heartbreaking,
Well, once you've got these puppies, once you've got your puppies, on the ground, you've done your homework, you've got your girl, you've bred her the way you think she should be bred, which if I'm hearing you correctly, is not going to necessarily be to the dog that's convenient because he's in the next town, so I think people should know, that for sure, that when you're looking for someone to breed her to, you got to be willing to go to what's best for her, and what your goals are down the road. And that may not be the dog in the next town over. So, but once you've got these puppies, and I mean, I know, you talked about their socialization and how you raise them, so that they're ready to be good pets too for people. And that, so you can live with them, which I think is
the same here.
Yeah, they're just, that's the way I feel about mine, is they're pets who double as show dogs some weekends, that's what they do, but they're my pets. And they've just been so important to the family. But once you've got your puppies on the ground, you've determined who your keeper is or keepers are, then talk to us about training, and how you and that dog are going to form a team to enter the show ring. How do you get that puppy ready to go?
Well, one of the things different people approach owning puppies in different ways. A lot of people want to just start training them and taking them to puppy classes right away, and they want to start obedience right away as soon as they can. And I always say, okay, I want you to do this, please. Let the puppy be a puppy first. Let the puppy enjoy its environment first.
Definitely.
Don't put that stress on the puppy of having to train it. Let the puppy learn to love you first without you being such a Nazi and disciplining him if he doesn't sit right away and stuff like that. The first thing you want to do is house train him. That's your first thing. You want to instill discipline in just the basic house training. Secondly, you want to just teach them the word no or don't, which is, that some of my puppies think their name is no. But the bottom line is you just want to start just teaching them basic things. Don't get involved in this instant obedience right away. Third thing, and very important, is crate training. Learn how to crate train. You might just go ask the breeder or go online and look at various ways and see which way appeals to you to crate train a puppy. You want to get them crate trained because you're going to be going to shows, or even if you're not going to shows, a crate trained dog is a better dog, because there might be times when people come over to your house and they really don't want the dog around them. They might be allergic to the dog, or they're just not into dogs. You don't want your dogs pushed away, shoved aside, or even hit because a person doesn't want the dog jumping on them. No, at this point, you want to crate them because you don't want that negativity um, going on with your dog. You get those things out of the way, and that takes a little while. It takes a few weeks, and then I would say when they're about 4 months old, you might want to take them out to a training class, just a confirmation class, just to get them used to being around other dogs. Don't be hard on them. Just let them get used to being around other dogs. One of the basic training things that you do want to do with a puppy before you take him to training class is just teach them how to heel. You teach them how to heel, you can take them to the training class, and don't teach them how to heel at the training class because that's very disruptive to have a dog there that doesn't know how to heel. So you want to teach them how to heel. Then you take them to a training class when they're about, I don't know, 4 to 6 months old, and take them out in public after they get their shots. You want to take them out in public and socialize them. Get them used to people and let people come up to them. Some dogs are easier than others. Those that are not so easy, you give a treat to the person and let them give your dog and pet the dog so the dog can get used to it. Then, you as you go to your training class, every week your dog should start to improve if when you go back home, you teach your dog what you learned at the training class. And people who are just beginning, I always tell them, listen, you don't know exactly how to stack your dog, but at least you can do this. Put your dog on a table, or with a bigger dog, put your dog on the ground and just have him stay standing. And then at the training class or with another exhibitor or breeder, they can help you properly stack your dog. And before you know it, you're dealing with Dachshunds are a little more stubborn than Dobermans. I can tell you that right now. Having many Dachshunds over the years, they're a little more stubborn. Dobermans learn faster, but just the same, your Dachshund will learn. And so those are the main things. My dogs are usually ready to go and compete, when they're 6 months of age, because and the other thing is in your training, when you're training at home, don't overdo it. 15 minutes at the most each training session. You want it to be fun for your dog.
Right.
You definitely want it to be fun for your dog, or else it's not going to come out so well in the end. They'll get tired, they'll rebel. You want to keep it fun. Some days are going to be better than others.
All right.
That's all. That's all I can say to that. And the best thing you can do, let me say this. There are all kind of little finite things that enter into training a show dog, is that they become food oriented. If they're food oriented, that's a plus. And to me, the whelping, we go back to the whelping box. When it's time for weaning, don't overfeed your puppies. I have a really good friend that loves when the puppies eat all the food, she put out more. No. That's wrong. You don't put out more. What you do is the next time you put out a little bit more, because you don't want your puppies to fill up and then back away. That's not good, because they'll learn to back away from their food. You want a little bit more. And when they want a little bit more, they become more food oriented. You don't want them to ever become bored with eating.
Hmm.
They become bored with eating. When you say, oh God, they ate up all that food, I should give them a little bit more. No, the next feeding, you give them a little bit more.
Okay.
And if they back away, anytime they back away, the next feeding, you give them a little bit less. That's the way, that's so important in getting your dogs and training your dogs to have a good appetite, a relationship with food.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a food-oriented dog, that's a big, big, big plus. And you don't spoil. And the other thing is treats. When they're really when they're puppies, let them stay on the puppy food. Don't start giving them treats until they are they're much older. That's when you give them treats. Get that appetite trained for dog food, because you don't want to train their taste buds to just like the candy. The treats are their candy,
Mm-hmm.
and then they don't want to eat. They don't
Eat
want to eat the
food.
dog food.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
know.
Mm-hmm. Well, okay, so let's talk a little bit more about breeding. And I know in the toy community, a lot of them will have, maybe two sisters, and they have one who is a brood bitch and one that they take out and that they show. Is that something that you all do in Dobermans? Or talk to people about, again, just kind of what you're looking for, and when to like not throw the baby out with the bathwater type thing, because I think sometimes we make a mistake, and because this girl isn't exactly, what we wanted, you may place them, and that could be your bitch that's the producer. I mean, how do people not jump the gun and literally throw the baby out with the bathwater? They decide too soon, and then you may have a girl who, oh, she's lovely, but she can't produce, and it was maybe her peasant sister who was your producer. You know what I mean?
I do know what you mean. I have to say I've been very lucky to have a line of really good mothers. They're good. The show dogs, the Maya bitch I was telling you about, those guys are into the show game. They're like nobody's business. They make me so proud. Again, I have to say, Maya is a wonderful mother. Her daughters are wonderful. I have a good line of mothers. Now, I do know breeders who are faced with the problems that you're faced with, that you just used as an example. And I don't know. I mean, that's a question that I haven't had to ponder too much, because I've been very fortunate to have really good mothers. My mothers are really good. But what I would say is that a bitch who has a good pedigree and she may not be a show dog, but she has a good pedigree and she has enough attributes that you might be able to, I would give her a chance, because there might be a stud out there that could bring something more to the table for that particular bitch. There are studs who are really good producers, and there are studs who are just sperm donors.
Right.
I like the sperm donors for a bitch like Maya, because I want to continue.
Talk about that. See, talk about that a lot. That bitch line that you have developed, that they will do the work. The boys kind of need to get them pregnant, but they're going to do the work. Talk to the people about why that's so important when you're going forward as a breeder, to have that strong bitch line. Talk to them about that.
Oh yeah, because it's 60% is going into the bitch. It's going to the puppies. 60% of the bitch is going into the puppies. And so you want to really, really try to preserve that as much as possible. That's why it's so important to pay attention to what these studs are producing. if they are producing a fault over and over again, like in Dobermans, one of my pet peeves is what they call the gay tail, where the tail sticks straight up like a terrier.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, well, if that dog is constantly producing that, I don't care how beautiful he is, I don't want to breed. I don't want to breed to him.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And like, I really try to, the dogs that I show, I really try to have a nice tail set, because I think this really throws off the whole look, if you ask me. And so I pay attention to what the studs are bringing to the table by looking at their get and looking at the bitches they were bred to see if they made any corrections and what corrections they have made on a consistent basis. It's all it's fun to look at the pedigree, to study, and to pay attention. To me, that's just good fun, and that's what makes the hobby so intriguing. Is to look, looking at what you have and what you need, and try to evaluate in a very smart way. But you can't do it by looking in the magazines and checking out. I get about at least 5 different magazines with these dogs being advertised. Some of those pictures are doctored or photoshopped. So you really need to pay attention and not go with the flavor of the month, and you could do your bitch a disservice by breeding to the wrong dog, health wise and otherwise.
Right.
Right. So that's what, and then again, in this competitive arena of showing dogs, you got to do a lot of the work yourself in terms of making your own decisions, because people badmouth each other, and they'll badmouth a really nice dog where it shouldn't be, just because. You see, this competition thing really does bring out some nastiness, but that's just the way it is. You just gotta know that exists. That's why it behooves you to do your homework in a smart way. You ask questions, not just from one person, but you ask questions. If you're going to do this breeding is going to cost money.
Right.
It's going to cost time. You need to do what we call, and it's commonly known as, research, and don't be lazy about it.
Right. All right, people, research, take your time, do it right. You won't regret it. You won't regret it. No. Well, talk to us some about evaluating your breeding program. You've now moved to the place where you have established it. How often should you review your choices and your direction that you want to go in? How harsh should you be? Because the kennel blindness is a problem. So
it is.
How harsh should you be? And should you reevaluate, write the vision, make it plain, so that you can move forward and use that time wisely, and your girls wisely.
Yeah. Have you ever noticed? This is something that I've noticed over the years. A kennel that is riding high and is doing a lot of winning for about 5 to 6 years, and then all of a sudden, you don't see them winning anymore. You don't see them producing good dogs anymore. That happens a lot in a lot of different breeds, and that's because they haven't taken a step back and looked at the decisions that they've made and where they should go next. In my particular breeding program, I have decided, I mean, first of all, I'm a big fan of line breeding because that really sets your type. But you got to know when to hold them and when to fold them. You got to know when to step back and evaluate. Okay, so what are the things that are causing my dogs to not win as much as they should, or not as should, as much as I would like them to? Why is my breeding sort of on a leveling out and going downward? That's when you have to step back and say, I need to go out. I need to do some studying. And that is just, that's very important. A lot of people, they just get hung up on their line and they just want to continue to breed to their dogs and their dogs. And all of a sudden, see, again, that's the fun part about it, is to step back and say, oh, wow, what direction should I go now? Because I'm not doing what I used to do. I'm not progressing. To me, it's about progress.
Right.
If I'm not progressing and doing better dogs than I did 5 years ago, then what am I doing in this? I want to progress. I definitely want to progress. And that's why you have to, take time and evaluate and step back and see, what can I do to make my breeding program even better than it is now? If you don't have that mindset, just like Faye Strauss told me in mentoring me about the mindset I should have when I'm showing dogs. You got to have the mindset to improve and to know that you still haven't reached the top. And that's if you're just going to settle for what is, well, then you're going to lose, because there are people who are going to try to develop dogs to beat yours. And as they develop dogs to beat yours, and you're just staying on the plane, you're going to see them rise to the top.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Right. Well, so when you're looking to go out and to bring in some new blood, how do you go about selecting that outcross that will be beneficial? What should people, if they know now, okay, I know now it's time for me to go out, what steps should they be taking to find the right dog to complement and not destroy, everything that they've built?
Yeah. Well, again, that's why it takes. That's why you have to really do your research and seeing what this dog is consistently doing. It's not what he did with that one litter. It's what he's consistently doing with the litters that he's done. And if he's consistent, then that's the outcross that you need for your particular problem that you want to correct, or that you want to, just improve on. Top lines, for instance, in Dobermans. I had a breeder friend who made a big mistake. He decided that the front, he really wanted a better front, and he bred to a dog that had a really good front, but he had a bad, if you ask me, he had what we call a wheelback. He had a bad top line that, it wasn't level. And yeah, he got some better fronts, but guess what? He got bad top lines.
Yeah.
So now where is he going now?
Yeah.
What is he going to do? He's going to go back and try to get those top lines back. He has work to do. Fronts are a little harder to come by, I have to say.
Right.
But I don't know that he ended up dying. I would love to have seen what he was going to do, 5 years, how it's going to come out 5 years down the line. And he had beautiful, beautiful, beautiful dogs. And but he wanted a better front. But he sacrificed the front because he thought his top lines were so strong that would overcome that dog with the bad top line, and it didn't. That bad top line. So that's what I'm saying. If he would have done his work, that dog wasn't bred to a whole lot. Okay, he was very impressed with that dog's front, but that dog wasn't bred to a whole lot. So he didn't know that that dog would be consistently throwing. He bred two bitches, two beautiful bitches to that dog.
Oh, wow.
And he did not, he thought that his top lines were strong enough to overcome that bad top line because he had consistently good top lines. And that threw his whole breeding program off, and then he died. But being the person that he would, I am sure that he would come back and try to, really correct that. But he was showing some, he was showing some, I wouldn't say bad dogs, but his dogs were not on top anymore because of that top line. And so, you really do have to do your homework. And when you want to go out, that's when it pays to really, really hunker down and pay attention to who's doing consistently, who's having consistent results with these studs. What stud is having consistent results with what you need?
So, okay, so talk to folks then about what you can live with and what you can't. Like, what fault is a deal breaker for you?
Okay, so here's the deal. There are dogs. That's a good one. Everybody has their own little persnickety thing. I don't want a dog walking around my house, as I've mentioned, so with the tail straight up.
Yeah.
Squirrel tail or a tail that's sticking straight up. I can't live with that. That cannot be. I don't want. I bred a beautiful, beautiful litter, and that one dog, probably the best male in the whole litter. He finished really quick. Nice show dog, really nice showy dog. But the people, that didn't bother them. They loved the dog to death. But I couldn't deal with that. So that's a deal breaker for me. Everybody has their own little thing. Some people, it's heads. Some people, it's the eye shape. They don't want a round eye. They want an almond shaped eye. They don't want that walking around their house. The interesting thing about the eye thing, I have a little story. I had this bitch. She was the first champion that I ever bred. Her name was Brandy, and Brandy had the prettiest little round eye that you want to ever see. She had the most incorrect head, but it was a cute head. She finished because she was really showy, and she had a lot of nice other attributes. No dog is perfect.
Right.
But I bred her to a dog that had an ugly head, but he had some beautiful things, and he had a beautiful almond eye. And I said, well, I'm probably going to get some ugly round-eyed puppies, but I really like this body on this dog, and he moved like a dream. So I'm going to go ahead and take a chance. The prettiest male head I've ever bred came out of that breeding.
Wow.
And I would always tell a person, people would come up to me like the great Mary Rogers. She's an icon of it. And she was walking up to me. She says, oh my God, where'd you get that headpiece? And I said, you would be surprised. That headpiece came from two incorrect heads. A dog with a Roman nose, and he had a nice eye, but basically his head was just not there. And the bitch had kind of a snipey, but she was cute. She has a cute head. Anybody that didn't know the breed would think, oh, that's very feminine. That's very cute, And so, the judges, I found enough judges that didn't put emphasis on the head. so Bernardo, the male, had the most beautiful, beautiful almond-shaped eye and the nice wedge. He was a handsome dog. handsome dog. Didn't like the show, became a champion, but didn't like the show. Since his last point, he was retired instantly. But he was a beautiful headed dog. So, in terms of everybody has their own little thing that they can live with and can't live with, and that's just up to you how much of the fault you want to accept, because they all have faults. Anybody tell you the dog gonna have faults is crazy.
Right. Well, talk to us some about what you're seeing now. You're actively judging. What deficiencies are you seeing in Dachshunds and in Dobermans right now? Where do we need to improve?
Okay, so let's start with the
in what
Dachshunds.
variety? Are you seeing things in longs that are not in wires, or talk to us about where we are, what you're seeing.
Well, the interesting thing about the Dachshunds, compared to when I first started, I think they're a little more. I'm seeing too many leggy ones now. That's the problem that I'm having, and a lot of them have the wrong tail carriage also. It's up in the air, waving and stuff. But I excuse the wrong tail set with a Dachshund before I excuse the wrong tail with a Doberman. But the Dachshunds, I would like to see them a little bit lower to the ground. I'd like to see a little bit more laid back. I think that when people show them, on the whole, they're moving them too fast. I'm seeing them go to the races, and I have stopped my judging in the middle of judging, and I said, "Excuse me, we're not at a racetrack. I wanted to see this dog go at a moderate speed."
Yeah.
And I'm seeing too much of that. One of the things that have occurred over the past 20 years is the tweenie. There's the mini, now there's the tweenie, and then there's the standard. And I think that's a very interesting change that has happened in the Dachshund world. And I don't, if the dog is balanced and he has, a lot of good attributes, the size really doesn't make that much difference to me. But that's a profound change from when I first started in Dachshunds and now. That's truly about it. I think that the rears could absolutely be helped a little bit more in Dachshunds. I see too many cow-hocked rears, and but again, they all have faults. I think the temperaments are better than they used to be. I think breeders have worked on those. In Dobermans, the tail sets, it's an epidemic. The high tail sets. I asked one breeder why she was breeding to a dog, why she has so many high tail sets now, because she's had some beautiful. She says, I think they should just change the standard. I said, what? So you think that they should change the standard on the tail sets? So that would mean they change the standard on tail sets, they change the standard on the fronts. I said, that's crazy. But that to me, that can be improved upon. I think that the rears on the Dobermans have become better. I think the fronts on the Dobermans need a little bit more improvement. The Dobermans actually have improved in comparison to two breeds. Let me say this. I think that the Dobermans have improved more. Now, they're better looking now than they were, let's say, 30 years ago. Whereas the Dachshunds in the mid 60s, to me, it can be very competitive today. To me, I like the low to the ground. I like the top lines. I think that there's been major improvement in Dobermans and less improvement in Dachshunds. That's just my thought.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I
Mm-hmm.
love those Dachshunds, you know, like the Falcon dog, the hind tackle dogs. I love those dogs.
Yeah.
I love the Jodelle Nicholas dog, the famous long-haired dog that won the group at Westminster.
Mm-hmm.
I love the Wire Ponwick's Hobgoblin and Timothy, Peggy Westfall's dogs. Some of Michael Reed's dogs were really, really, really nice. So that's I was just thinking about that just the other day, how those breeds, one has really evolved where the dogs from yesterday could not compete today. They were way too straight. And even the one that won Westminster, he wouldn't. I don't know that he would be a champion today. Not Indy, but the other dog. Rancho Dogs dog. He, you know, he was a nice dog then, but not now. Whereas in Dachshunds, they have definitely the dogs of yesterday, I think I like better. And that's all I can say about that.
Okay. So talk to us then about breeders and maybe breeder education, because there's a lot, you know, that I see about judges education, but you and I are talking right now to try to help breeder education on down the line, you know, having this kind of information in one place for younger aspiring breeders, where they can have people like you, they can watch this and see maybe some things that and hear some things that they didn't think of before. So how do we, I guess, how do we help encourage breeder education, and then we'll be bringing better dogs to the judges, you know?
Yeah, well, here's the deal. I have to applaud the Doberman Pinscher Club of America and their education of breeders and judging and showing. We, at the regionals, we absolutely have little mini seminars, and that has helped so many people. And we have a beautiful, for judges, we have a video, 7-minute concise video that is just fantastic. I would advise anyone to go on YouTube and look at that video and encourage the Dachshund Club of America to do a similar video, because a lot of times people don't want to sit up and watch a long video. This is only about 7 minutes. And it's called How to Judge a Doberman. Breeders can learn, just breeders and exhibitors can learn from that too. I think that your Dachshund Club of America could do more in terms of breeder education. And at these regionals and the national, they should definitely do, we have breeder education, we have judges education, and we have show at the national. At the some of the regionals, we have breeder education as well. I mean, at some of the regionals, yeah, we have breeder education as well as judges education. And you know, you can't get too much education. You know, every time I look at my standard again, there's something else that pops out in my head. And I always encourage judges, always review your standards before. Don't go in there thinking that you know it all. Just don't. So I think that your parent club can absolutely do more in that respect. And that video, I think the breeder education one would probably be very, very valuable. We actually should probably do a breeder education one, just like we did I'm talking about Dobermans, just like we did the judges education one, because it's concise, it's to the point, and I think you can't get enough education.
Right, I agree. Well, let's talk about something that's near and dear to your heart and mine. You talked a little bit in the beginning about starting off as a very young person in the 60s.
Mhm.
Talk about diversity in dog sports in general. How can we be more welcoming? How can we be more inclusive?
Mhm.
Tell us about your time in this. You've done this for a long time, and there are people who are looking to begin, and they are not sure that they will be welcome.
Yeah, I have to tell you, when I first started out here in California, people were they were very nice to me as a young boy. I was treated very well. Um, and my parents, if I wasn't, then my parents would not have allowed me to continue.
Mhm.
Okay. But as I grew up in the sport, I did encounter negativity. And and I just had to make the decision how I was going to deal with this. And the way that I've chosen to deal with the negativity is that I will not tolerate any obvious uh, negativity in that I would stay away from people who treated me blatantly bad. Um, there are some who were just nasty, period. And then there are people who were just racist. And unfortunately, they have run away people of color who would have been an asset to the whole showbiz. But I don't believe in that. I'm a rebel. I believe in not allowing people to run me away. And there are always good people. I believe I'm like little Anne Frank. I think that there's some good people out there. And that's who I try to surround myself with. And I use the negative response to help me breed better dogs, and so I can beat them in the show ring.
Mm-hmm.
And just like judges, there are judges who are, downright racist, and
Right.
I don't show to them. I don't spend my money on them
Mm-hmm.
because I'm not going to let them run me away. I've had too much fun. I've made some incredible friendships in this, and I've decided that there's no way that I'm going to just allow myself to be bullied.
Right.
And, so it helps me to move on with breeding better dogs. Now, when I go to a dog show and I see people of color, most especially African American, I never hesitate to go up to them. I don't care what breed they are looking at. I always like to go up to them to let them know, hey, you know what, this could be fun for you. Or, if I can help you to get a breed, let me know. I want them to know this because inclusion and diversity is very healthy. It's healthy on so many levels. But
Mm-hmm.
there are people walking around with one-digit IQs who really believe that they are of the superior race.
Right.
And anybody that's different from them, they look down upon.
Right.
Well, I just look at them, they're just fools. They're
Mm-hmm.
just walking fools. And you're going to get, and I was thinking about this when I was mentoring people. What can I say to people of color who I mentor? I tell them, I said, listen, you're going to get negativity and fools in everything you do on the work
Everything.
and,
Yes.
and work.
Mm-hmm.
You will have fools at work, rotten apples in every barrel.
Mm-hmm.
You will have fools in your family.
Mm-hmm.
You will have fools in any club or organization, not necessarily dog clubs.
Mm-hmm.
So don't allow the fools to run you away. Is there negativity in the dog game? Is there racism in the dog game? Absolutely.
Yeah,
But it's not going to run me away from the dog game.
that's
You
right.
know, I'll give you a good example. I called up one time to see if I could judge. This was many years ago. See if I could be a steward at the Westminster Dog Show, simply
Mhm.
because the Westminster Dog Show is always touted to be like the World Series of the dog shows and everything. And why not aspire to
Mhm.
do something on that level? As long as I'm climbing the level of being exhibitor, breeder, judge, why not aspire to go to the top?
Right.
Well, I soon learned that they don't want you there. The people uh, I called the show chair, um, and he and I said, David Fry, who at the time was the commentator, the
Hmm.
color man,
Hmm.
wonderful guy. He said, I asked David, how can I be a steward? That's a good start, right?
Hmm.
And he said, Adrian, I want you to call this guy and see and tell him that I told you to call. And I introduced myself. I told him who I was, and I told him that I would love to be a steward. I didn't ask him about judging.
Right.
And and he said, "Yeah, right. Okay, well, you know what? There's a long line out there, and so I'm sorry." He was very short with me. I said, "Thank you very much," and I hung up. From that point on, I decided, okay, this is the way you're going to have to think about this whole thing, and and stay with this. And all your shows are your Westminster shows,
Exactly.
and in that way, I can be happy. And that's the way I choose to live my life as a judge in this. So you're always going to have those little negative incidents that will occur along the way, and they will still continue to occur along the way. Okay. And I find, also in life, when you raise your hand and you call people out on things, then you become what they call the troublemaker because
Exactly.
you didn't stand back and allow them to put their feet on you. Well,
Right.
that's like John Lewis says, that's good trouble,
Exactly.
you know. And
Exactly.
if I can open the door for another judge to to be invited to judge Westminster because I raised my hand and said there is prejudice. Have you ever seen a black judge in 100 almost 50 years judge Westminster? You haven't seen the judge the group on
Hmm.
television.
Hmm.
And as a result, maybe if they did have a judge the group at Westminster, maybe you will have little kids in front of the television set saying, maybe I can do that.
Exactly.
You see, because before Tiger Woods, you didn't see any kids aspiring to be golfers. Now you
That's
see,
right.
especially women of color, not
Hmm.
necessarily
Hmm.
blacks, but you see a lot of women of color out there.
Hmm.
Uh,
Hmm.
become same thing in tennis.
Hmm.
Venus and Serena.
That's right.
You know, now you see a lot more black girls. And so anyway, I look at this whole thing as every show is my Westminster. I'm hyped to judge, and that's my Westminster.
Hmm.
And if I, by saying what I'm saying today, will can open the door to somebody saying, you know what, he's right. And I've never seen a black man or woman judge in 100 and some years. Now they have us singing the Star Spangled Banner. They have us, doing the singing and dancing, and then they have us out there asking questions, dumbass questions, you know. And of course, we don't know nothing, so that's why they have the people. They'll choose a news person to ask questions of a person who doesn't know anything. So they ask obvious questions. Well, how do you get the coat so shiny? Or what did you do to make the dog? So what do
Right.
they know? What do we know? That's
Right.
how we're presented.
Right.
So anyway, that's the way I feel. So maybe by saying something, there was a thread online where African American exhibitors were talking about there are no judges that are ever on television, and I was thinking, well, at least it's being thrown out there,
Right.
and I think that's very important. And it's like anything else. It's like, if Rosa Parks hadn't stood her ground, we would probably still be sitting in the back of the bus.
Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely. So it's
you know,
up to everybody. This is a job for everybody to do
it,
what you can where you're at. Do
it,
what you
it,
can
it,
where you're
it,
at.
exactly. And so, again, I go back to the old saying, pay attention. Just pay attention to what's happening. Pay attention, and that will help you in making your decisions and determination of how you want to proceed.
Mm-hmm.
But don't ever let anybody run you away from what you love. I love dogs. They have been so instrumental in my mental health. Growing up, my children, my sons are better. My children's wives and girlfriends will tell you, my kids are jocks. My sons are real. But you know what? They can come home and they curl up with their dogs. And now I don't know if they allow their friends to hear them talk baby talk and everything, but guess what? Those guys are the best fathers in the world. Their wives have always complimented, God, he's the best father. Even on Facebook, this man is the best father. Well, I don't say nothing, but I raised them with dogs. They have nurturing skills.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? I
Oh,
believe
yes.
that
Yes.
children should have dogs in their life. Unfortunately, there's some who are allergic to them, and that's unfortunate.
Mm-hmm.
But if they can get something where they can apply their nurturing skills and practice just loving,
Mm-hmm.
they become better people.
Oh, I believe it. I know that animals change children. I know that. And I noticed in my own home that children, they come here, they get their dog fix here because so many don't have an animal in the home, and they love to come here and kind of get their little doggy fix at the Lanham household. So, it does. It's a
Yes.
beautiful thing. It's a beautiful
Oh,
thing for them. Mm-hmm.
oh yeah. I encourage people, hey, you know what? Get a dog. And when your son is, or your child reach the age of 5, my kids, God, I love my kids so much, and their nurturing skills just make me so proud.
Mm-hmm.
And like these boys were like all-stars in sports. You won't expect jocks to kneel down on the floor and hug and kiss on the dog. That to me is so important
Mm-hmm.
in being a person and not being a cold fish.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And so dogs have done me well, and I'm not going to desert them because of the racism that I encounter or see. And I think
And
it's
it
so
can
important.
really come in different forms. At our national, and I've told you this, I was thought to be the maid.
Mm-hmm.
And I had been walking past those people on the same floor in the hotel for 3 or 4 days, but they never saw me. They just saw my
Mm-hmm.
color. They saw color, they didn't see me. So I must have been the maid, even
Mm-hmm.
though I was there to compete with them.
Mm-hmm.
So it comes, again, what you said, don't let it stop you. It's a
I
beautiful strength.
believe, I believe in God.
Yeah.
I believe what's right is right and what's wrong is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
To judge a person by its color or sexual affiliation or whatever is wrong.
Right.
Go with what's in a person's heart and
Mm-hmm.
how they carry themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And when you see, I just say, God, it'll all come out in the end. A lot of these people you will never change. They really think they are superior.
Right.
And that's on them. That's who they are. And it's according to what time of day it is. If they approach me with any kind of racial stuff, I try to ignore, but there are times that I'm just not going to ignore it.
Exactly.
Because silence is permission,
It is.
you know.
And you do
And I've
not
had
have
some
my
of my
permission.
friends come up to me and says, and they'll say stuff like, "Oh, did you know so and so said this? They used the N word and blah blah blah." I said, "Well, what did you say?"
Right.
Well, you want to come and tell me? You want to be? What did you say? Did you stand there and just allow that to happen?
Mm-hmm.
You know, what kind of person are you? What does that say about you? Well, I didn't. I know. Well, don't come tell me about it then.
Right.
Now, if you want to come and tell me something, tell me what you said when
Right.
you heard it. You know, because those people, they are going to pay in the long run for their
Mm-hmm.
actions.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and you know, and I've had some of my Caucasian friends who've come up to me and said, "I let them have it."
Yeah.
I said, "Well, thank you. That's
It
good
is
on you.
nice to have
That's good.
allies. It's nice. Mm-hmm.
That's good on you."
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Mm-hmm.
But I think dogs are really important, and what they do for people. It's proven time after time after time. So yes, we will continue to encounter racism, but you continue to help people who want to be in this, people of color. We will help them stay in it, help them bring them into it, because I think that they're doing themselves a disservice if they allow these people to run them away.
Right.
You see, if you stand strong, I think you will be respected.
Right.
The
Mm-hmm.
Doberman Pinscher Club of America is a great example. I have always on the internet, when they had the Doberman chat rooms, uh, starting many years ago, I used to speak out and speak up, and that's why I think people respect me.
Right.
You know, I don't speak out and speak up just to be speaking out and speaking up. I want to do it when I feel it counts and it comes from my heart.
Right.
And you know what? You can call me all kind of names, but as long as I feel within myself that I've done the right thing, that's all that matters to me.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
know,
As long as you
I've
can
had a
live with you.
wonderful,
Mm-hmm.
I, yeah, I've had a wonderful um, time um, in this game, but it didn't come without obstacles
Right.
and issues. It didn't come, you know, free of obstacles and
Mm-hmm.
racism. That that's nothing. I mean, you know,
That's a daily
like
life. That's
exactly,
daily
exactly,
living. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
exactly, exactly. And but I'm not going to be one. My grandmother who raised me my first 9 years, those are the formative years. I was her puppy. And she trained and she was an activist in Louisiana. She participated in the bus boycotts. And she was the one, because you know she had a little bit of money and status. She was a teacher and principal, and so she was the one who drove people to work in different places during the bus boycott in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. It wasn't just in Montgomery.
Mm-hmm.
It was in a lot of places down south.
Right.
And I will always look at her as my biggest role model in living my life. You know, don't be scared.
Exactly.
Don't stand back. I mean, sometimes you just want to ignore some things because you don't have the time right now.
Yeah. It isn't
But
even worth the discussion. So,
exactly.
mm-hmm.
But then there are times when you say, okay, well, let's get with this. You know, and that's fine. And that's fine. You
Mm-hmm.
know,
And
so
there are consequences. I think there are more consequences now for people who engage in that than there used to be. And that's something
oh,
that, people need to realize that there will be consequences for you, and
yeah,
don't don't look at the ability to ignore you as weakness.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's hardly weakness. It takes strength to do
Yes.
that and to
Yeah.
keep going and to you know have the other party be like dead people. And I don't engage with dead people. So
Right.
that's kind of the way I look at it. Is if you're dead to me, you're dead. I don't talk to dead people. I don't see dead people. So
Exactly.
mhm.
Exactly. And this summer, more and more white people, especially the youth, are coming to the table and saying, you know what, this is just unacceptable
Mhm.
and wrong.
Mhm.
So I think we're moving in a much better direction than we were.
Right.
And it is because they have decided, you know what, I'm not going to live my life this way. I'm not
Mhm.
going to live my life being a racist. I'm
Mhm.
not going to live my life ignoring some of the issues that are going on
Mhm.
that I could actually be a part of reckoning,
Mhm.
you know. Um, so dog show game isn't any different than the other. It's just how you choose to handle it. You know,
Choose. Yes.
there are some people in it who will not acknowledge that there is anything wrong at all, and
Mhm.
that's fine with them.
Mhm.
But I have
Mhm.
to live my life and be the person that I want to be. I'm not going to
Exactly.
ignore. I'm not going to ignore what's wrong. That's just I'll ignore what's wrong to a point.
Mhm.
But for the most part, I think most people who know me know where I stand, and come don't come bringing me the mess.
Right. Right. Well, I know I've kept you a long time, but I want to get your opinion on just what is our future for in dogs? How do you see the future of dog shows of breeders kind of going forward? There are a lot of things that are problematic for people who want to breed dogs, from money to space to the adopt don't
Yeah,
shop
I know.
people.
And this,
What is the future? How do you see our future going forward, just for dogs in general and people who are enthusiasts?
yeah, unfortunately, this COVID thing has absolutely put a halt to a lot of people's breeding programs.
Yeah.
And prior to that, I was just thinking, prior to that, and I've had so many conversations with people that I am not, I am not sure about what is the future of dog shows like 10 years from now. Um, there are a lot of things that are factoring into people who are not um, breeding as much and showing as much. The entries were going down. Now, because of COVID, there haven't been very many shows. Now the entries have popped back up, but I'm not so sure how that's going to end up. And but I'm going to say this. I think with shows being televised, like the national, I call it the National Dog Show, which is really the Kennel Club of Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
That's a very popular show, high ratings. I come from television background, so I understand the ratings game.
Mm-hmm.
So that comes on NBC. Now ABC it just showed the Raw Canaan show.
Mm-hmm.
I think there might be an upsurge in public interest in showing dogs. We'll see how that, because I think the more people see, it's almost like an advertisement
Right.
of a hobby to get into.
Mm-hmm.
That's something the family can engage in. I'm hoping that this will serve as an upsurge of interest in dog shows. The more they're being televised, and so we have, and then the Westminster show. I guess ESPN or Fox, one of those networks, they're going to do the Westminster show Whereas Westminster show didn't get the high ratings because it was on, like Fox on one night and on another station the other night.
Mm-hmm.
It was all mumble jumble. But when dog shows go to a major network like NBC, ABC, or CBS, it's all about ratings.
Mm-hmm.
And the networks pay attention to what's garnering the ratings. And so with the Thanksgiving dog show getting those high ratings, that has made the other networks, other major networks, interested in doing their own dog shows. It's just like police shows,
Yeah.
like doctor shows. They all start doing doctor shows. They all start doing police shows, now fire shows.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing. So I'm thinking that there's hope. There's light at the end of the tunnel. Prior to that, I was thinking, I don't know about this, because I'm seeing the entries dive. Now I think more people might be, and let's see what that produces in terms of people's interests. Let's see how that works. If not, then I don't know. I think there will always be breed interests. The specialties will exist, but I'm not so sure about all breeds because they're more. It's harder and harder. I've been a show chair for many years, and it's harder and harder to find the fairgrounds locations to do some of these shows. It's more expensive, I should say, and it's harder for clubs to sustain themselves because of the cost. And then with the entry fees going up, and then the handlers are charging more, that all contributed to
Right.
the spiraling down. But let's see what happens with since more and more networks are interested in showing having dog shows in prime time, and they're doing it in prime time. So all I can do is say, hopefully that will happen, and hopefully some of these shows will pay more attention to inclusiveness in terms of having more African American judges come on and be seen, and so more you can get that African American or people of color in general, get that audience going.
Right.
But so we'll see. We'll see.
We'll see. Well, we'll be here though. We'll be watching.
Yes, we will, won't we?
We'll be here. Well, thank you for spending some time with me. I always enjoy talking to you. I wish you lived closer so I could see you more often. Yeah. So, but thank you.
Well, you handle the South, I'll handle the North.
All right. So. We can do that.
Yeah.
All right. Hang back for me. Hang back for me. I'm going to stop the recording, but you hold on for me. Hold on.
Sure.